Brīt visiem. Good morning. Thank you for joining everyone. My name is Toms Zvidriņš and I'm running the representative office here in the United States. And today we'll talk about the retail market in the US. For the past 6 months, Americans can't shop in retail stores unless they are wearing a mask. And of course, we know we live in weird times and there are other changes that have happened during these several months. And a lot of the e-commerce business has skyrocketed and really grown. Food is being delivered from restaurants and also foods being delivered from grocery stores. However, today we'll talk more about the brick and mortar retail stores, and I'm really happy to see that Amalia has joined us already. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amalia Gukasyan, the president of Rosewalk Global. She has joined us from Pasadena, California. So thank you for being up so late, Amalia, because it's 10 hours difference and it's midnight in California right now. And I think we could start with the presentation if that sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the introduction, Toms. Good morning, everyone. Let me head straight to the presentation and try to keep it short so we have time for the Q&A session too. I'm going to share the screen now and then go straight to the presentation. Is it okay, Toms? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So Rosewalk Global works with foreign manufacturers and helps producers from abroad export to the United States. We primarily provide representation services, marketing and sales leadership in the US, partnership building, and we work with major retail chains, both national and regional. So let me see. I'm going to start with a quick overview of the retail market, focusing more on the grocery retail. And then if there will be demand that we talk specifically about other segments of the retail market, perhaps we could do another webinar where we could go more into details. But I thought since the time is limiting, we would concentrate more on the grocery. So the retail industry in the US is worth $4.9 trillion. It includes the motor vehicles and dealerships, general merchandise stores, non-store retailers, building materials and garden equipment, food and beverage stores, and health and personal care stores. We're going to talk, as I said, more about the grocery retail today. And I wanted to share with you some of the major players in the retail in US. And of course, Walmart, which is the single major leader. And if we click, we can see the number of stores in the US, the retail sales in $1 billion. If you're looking at to sell everything, that Walmart is one place to go. Kroger is a leader in grocery, foods, beverages, some non-food items. Costco is a leader in warehouse and clubs. And these are more details I'm going to share. The link is going to be there and you can look at more details, more of the details later. But so the grocery retail the primary activities would be selling general line of food products and health and beauty products. And it's worth of $656 billion by revenue. It's been growing steadily at a rate of 0.6% annually. And this year it has increased by 0.5% because of COVID. But this industry was the least effective because of COVID. First of all, since the stores were able to remain open, and perhaps secondly, because people would still eat and perhaps eat more during the pandemic because they stayed, at least in the US. Some categories increased in sales as compared to previous years and months. So here's the share of industry by product, and we can see that that the other foods segment is the bigger one, and it includes bread. This one has bread and cereal and snacks and kind of other categories that are not specifically mentioned above. One of the best sellers are the beverages, and beverages would include both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, from dairy products. Greek yogurt in the US has been traditionally one of the leading products, but recently the trends have changed, and non-dairy milk products have been leading the dairy product categories. And even some of the biggest milk producers or dairy producers like Altadena had to go bankrupt because people would go more into after niche and non-dairy milks like oatmeal or coconut milk or others. Frozen foods segment has increased during COVID because people wanted to go less frequent shopping, and they would choose product that had longer shelf life. So frozen foods had an increase during the COVID months, and it seems that it's going to stay because that's something that's already ready from the store to the refrigerator and then can be placed directly on the table. From drugs and health products that are sold in the grocery stage, supplements is a big market. And because of health concerns during COVID, the supplements market increased even further. People are choosing to take all types of vitamins and natural immune system supplements. So COVID and how it has impacted the retail industry. The retail industry overall has declined by 9.4% because of COVID, because the department stores or many brick and mortar stores were closed. However, the grocery and supermarket chains specifically, because of the fact that they remained open, they were least affected. And the biggest change that happened to these stores and their suppliers during COVID was the further increase in the online sales, because people would choose to go less to physical shopping and do more, order their foods and supermarket shopping products on online platforms. They would either use the existing online platforms of the stores or go to third-party delivery and order channels. However, once the economy rebounds, it's estimated that the retail industry will grow at a 3.4% as soon as the pandemic is over and people go back to work and unemployment decreases and disposable income will increase too. So some industry trends. The biggest demographic population in the US are the millennials. And millennials are characterized by health consciousness and value systems. So these people, when they shop, they would check on their phones whether the ingredients are all natural or organic, whether the company that produces the specific brand is environmentally, socially responsible, whether it's zero waste or other social and environmental responsibilities are preserved by the brand. They're caring more for premium brands and less for things that would include artificial or GMO or other elements. So the US grocery and supermarket chains have catered their services to specifically address this population, since the millennials are the people who would have the higher disposable income, and the millennials were kind of their main address group during the last 5 years, and the trend is going to continue for the next from 2020 to 2025. That's the retail chains are going to specifically cater for the millennials. And the US chains have opened up specific stores that would address this demographic group and the needs of these groups. Like one example that I wanted to share with you was 365 by Whole Foods. So Whole Foods is the organic, the natural premium chain in the US. Whole Foods itself has 500 stores nationwide, and it was founded after the food revolution in 1980s, when a bunch of hippies started voicing out concerns about over-industrialization of food industry in the US, and they wanted to eat whole foods and organic and natural foods. So they came up with the idea of the Whole Foods market that became kind of the first original store of the chain. The chain was purchased by Amazon a couple of years ago. It's operated by Amazon now. And so this Whole Foods chain has now launched another chain, 365 by Whole Foods. And the idea between this store is that natural, organic, and value-driven brands that can be available to the population all 365 days a year and at an affordable price. These stores are smaller in size, and they mainly sell Whole Foods private label brand, which is called 365. So I have a video, but I think we might run late to kind of watch the videos, I'm afraid. Toms, how is the timing going?
I think we're good.
Yeah, maybe just a minute to show the store, because it's really unique. And I think for Latvian manufacturers, this is specifically an opportunity because they are doing private label brands under the 365.
The energy in the store is amazing. It's an incredible experience for our team members, for our customers. No one's ever seen anything like this before.
It's only the coolest store ever.
It's pretty much the coolest store
No
ever.
sound.
First and foremost, I think our prices are going to be amazing. We really set out to do that. The second is really the feeling inside. It really came out the way we intended it to come out. Most people who've walked in so far, when they walk in, they're like, wow.
So that's kind of the feel, how you feel in the stores, and they're really unique, and it's more for the young and health conscious and value driven population. My next favorite in the stores, and I'm kind of absolutely a fan of this one, is the Trader Joe's, perhaps because the original Trader Joe's was founded just a couple of miles away from me in Pasadena. But these stores are unique in the sense that they're smaller than any other grocery chain in the US. They are only 1,200 square meters versus a regular grocery store that would be about 4,000 or 5,000 square meters in the US. And they have the highest sales per square foot in the US, and it's 1,700. Second comes Whole Foods. So what is so unique about Trader Joe's? Trader Joe's has only 5,000 SKUs versus 40,000 SKUs in a regular store. And they do mainly private label with a very few exceptions. So when you go to a Trader Joe's, instead of having 40 different types of peanut butter or 9 different types of cooking salt, you get only one. But then one type was very carefully chosen by the Trader Joe's, and the reputation of the store, makes the loyal consumers believe that this has been chosen for me, so I don't have to spend time and choose between 10 different types of the item that I want to buy. And they sell more than other stores in the same category item. The Trader Joe's, because it's private label, it's a very good opportunity for Latvian brands, but it's very difficult to get to get into this store. Also because they have very limited SKUs, very limited items.
Amalia, if you could just explain a little what is SKU for those who don't know.
Okay, so SKU is it's Tom's. It's just one item of the same category, but let me see how it's.
No, that's fine. I think that's what I wanted.
So it's called stock keeping unit. That's how it's, but it's mainly like if you mean in a category, just one item, that's how it's termed. Yeah. So Trader Joe's is however, Trader Joe's is very protective of its suppliers because that's the main competitive point for Trader Joe's, its suppliers. So once you become a supplier to Trader Joe's, they do not want to share you with other retailers. In most of the cases, they manage to give their suppliers contracts that would not let them do business with others. And if you go to a Trader Joe's, any item would say Trader Joe's whatever, but then you could see only in small letters saying, for example, made in France, product of Europe, or let's hopefully say we will have a product of Latvia soon. So Walmart, because we just cannot miss it. This is the single biggest major player in the retail. It is over 11,000 stores worldwide. If it was a country, I think in some places I saw that it would be the 24th biggest country in the world based on GDP, because the annual revenue for Walmart was over 500 billion. So, and I had a list of best-selling brands at Walmart, and you could see that if we went through that list, you could see that there's everything ranging from the most weird things to food items and beauty products and everything. And then I'm going to say that Walmart has a couple of years ago launched its Walmart Marketplace. That might be a good opportunity, and it's kind of the second only to Amazon, which is 40%, and Walmart has 5% of the shares of e-commerce. But that could be a good opportunity for Latvian companies that they wanted to launch in the US doing e-commerce. And Tom's, I don't know if you want to add a few things here, or maybe
I could just add, we also have like some Latin companies that have launched their market inside of Walmart platform, like Vova, the lingerie company, for example, and there are a few others. And I think what Walmart did, they basically copied Amazon's concept, and it's a drop shipping concept. So for those of you who are interested more into e-commerce and then looking for these fast growing players, then Walmart Marketplace would be probably the #2 in the US, as Amalia mentioned.
Okay. Perfect. So let's go ahead. Then I wanted to quickly mention the other major players, Kroger grocery stores that include all these brands that are specified. Each of these are chains by themselves. They own Ralph's and King Superiors and Food for Less and Food & Co. Kroger has 2,800 stores in the US, and they have 1,600 private label items. They have 15% of the market share in the grocery retail. The next big player that I wanted to mention was Albertsons, and Albertsons owns Safeways, Vons, Pavilions, Albertsons stores, and they have 2,300 stores. While we're talking about the bigger ones, there are also smaller ones and local and regional ones that kind of could be a good start for a Latvian company that doesn't want to launch nationwide, and also because launching with any of these chains is expensive. They all have their doing business costs. Now let's talk a little bit about the supply chain, because you'd have to have a supply chain set up before you go and speak to these chains. We do have connections at this stage, and we could set up meetings with each of the brands that told us we have a unique product that's absolutely special, and there's nothing like that in the US. But when you go and talk to the retail buyers, you'd have to know what is your supply chain, and you'd have to have in most of the cases, you'd have to have a warehouse, a sales team there, and a presence in the US. So the supply chain would include the international shipment, the landside services of customs declaration and tracking and shipment, warehousing and distribution, and then finally it would go to the retail and consumer. In most of the cases, when manufacturers want to export to a certain country, and I've heard this too many times from Latvian manufacturers and other European manufacturers, in many cases, they think that there will be a wholesaler or a distributor that would buy their product and then sell their product to the retailer. And all they need to do is to ship their product to the wholesaler, and the wholesaler will take care of everything. Well, in the US, this is very rare. This might happen with some local wholesalers or distributors that would provide to certain independent stores or ethnic markets. But the big ones, if you want to go nationwide and you go mainstream markets, you have to understand that in the US, the wholesalers, which are these guys, they're primarily logistics people. They don't sell your product. They only carry your product in their trucks to the retailers. So I wanted to talk today about a very specific institute that is, I think, unique to the US grocery and food industry, and that's the Institute of Food Brokers. So who are food brokers? Food brokers are people who work with both the manufacturers and the retailers. And what do? They sell the manufacturer's product to the retailers. And why are brokers so important? Because brokers have numerous connections with manufacturers. They represent numerous manufacturers' brands. And for retailers, it's much, much easier to deal with one broker that has lots of manufacturers, presents lots of manufacturers, rather than deal with representatives from every possible manufacturer. Imagine a store that has 50,000 brands that it's worked with. So it would have to work with 50,000 representatives separately if they didn't want to go through a broker. So if you're lucky enough to choose a broker that is one of the national brokers, then this broker will go with you to pitch your product to the retailers, and then the retailers will be more inclined to do business with you, because this doesn't mean to set up a new account with new people that do not understand how to do business with them. I wanted to talk quickly about some product trends and opportunities for Latvian manufacturers, specifically in the grocery and supermarket chains. And these are very trendy things. The regenerative agriculture, the one that's kind of more responsible. That means being more responsible about the soil and environment and reproductive features of the soil. The next one is out of the box into the fridge. And these are, gone are the times where the get-goers would just have the granola bars for snacking. Right now, the stores have portionized protein things that are fresh from the fridge section. They have portionized bone broths and photos and eggs that are already boiled with different spreads. And these are becoming more and more popular. Flours, everything. These are different types of flours, like cauliflower and coconut flour, that would replace the gluten. And then non-sugars, like pomegranate syrup and healthier types of sugars. Plant-based things, Impossible burgers and everything that is plant-based are becoming more and more trendy and popular in the US. Zero-proof drinks. These are the recently most popular things would be sparkling teas and non-alcoholic beers and kombuchas. Everything butter spreads. There is every type of butter spreads that are becoming more and more popular. And the last one that I've seen, and that was an interesting one, that was the roasted watermelon seed butter. So rethinking kids menu, that's more healthier, a lot of fish items, but already portionized and ready to go for busy parents. From cosmetic and beauty industry products that are free of everything, paraben free, everything free, all natural, bio, eco. And recently the buyers that I've noticed new products that are looking for was the blue light defense light. Like every one of us is wearing the defense for UV light, and now it's the blue light because we're more facing the blue light than anything else. So let me talk a little bit about unique opportunities for Latvian manufacturers. It seems that one thing that is a must for a European manufacturer, for a Latvian manufacturer when it considers launching in the US market, is the product has to be unique. Because there's abundance of, I think everywhere else too, but in the US more than everywhere else, because the US buyers are the most consumerist. There is so much choice, then it's very difficult to compete with categories that do not have product differentiation. So the brands that will have better chances would be the ones that are special and unique, and the ones that we can prove that there is either nothing like that or there is very little like that. And this one is either better in price or better in taste or better in ingredients. And of course, the trends are all natural and innovative, as I already mentioned. And I think Latvia is doing good in this segment. I've seen really great brands. So the next thing, once we identify with you that the brand is unique and special, is you have to have a US presence, because you'd have to understand that in the US, most of the time people do not understand what is Latvia and even where is Latvia. And even doing business with a foreign company, that is time difference, that is far away, there is language differences. Most of the time the partners, even especially the ones that are the big ones, they want to make sure that you have a presence in the US, that you have a sales team, that you have a marketing team, that there is an address and a phone number they can call and reach in the US when they need to do business with you. And then the next thing is the supply chain. They want to know that you have a warehouse. Most of the cases, they don't want to receive the product from abroad. They want you to have stock in the US. And of course, it's very expensive to run a fully fledged office in the US. And for a company that starts working in the US right now, it's way too expensive to hire a whole team in the US. So what do we do? Roswell Global, this is our office. It's empty right now because it's night first, and second, it's COVID. But we provide our offices and our staff to you. We become your representative, and we will present your product, talk your language, do your work instead of you in our best way. So what are some other requirements for brands that are launching in the US market? The US logistics established, as I said, you have to have, from once you do the international payment, you have to clearly set the tracking system that does the customs clearance, then the warehouse where you keep it. Your product has to be packaged correctly in accordance with FDA, and packaged the way the US buyer and the consumer is used to see it. When you go, even the samples that you are going to show to sometimes the brands would bring the sample with Latvian labels and language, and the buyers, they just get blown in their heads. They're not used to seeing anything other than English. So even the first sample should be the way they're kind of required and accepted. Then of course, sales materials developed, FDA registrations carried out, and then sales management team in place. By saying sales management teams, this one, we can replace the sales management team in the initial stages, but there are places where you start doing business with the big chains and they would require you to have a broker. So some other things that Rosewell Global would do for brands that are launching, will do the strategic planning with you. Say your company is producing 10 different SKUs, and it's very expensive to do the to bring all these 10 SKUs to the US immediately. So we will try with you to choose the best ones, the most special one. And I can bring examples later, but you have to choose your partners and the product that you're bringing to the US strategically. Financial planning will, this is very important because you'd have to know all your costs in the US to include them in your price. And we'll plan the finances with you, knowing and understanding the market and knowing the doing business costs. Marketing, of course, it's already big once you launch with one of the chains because of the reputation, because your product is already gonna be on their shelves. But the stores, they don't want you to rely on them. They want you to take care of your own product and do your own marketing. Because also when you launch with a chain in the US, in most of the cases, they're going to give you 9 months probation period. And if if your product doesn't move during this 9 months, that's not good for you. And it may result in dropping the product. So you have to have a marketing plan in place, and we can help you with that. Everyone thinks that in the US, you have to have millions of dollars of marketing plan to compete with the big brands. The social media has given chances to do smart marketing. You still have to invest and you still have to spend something, but this doesn't mean that will be unaffordable marketing budgets. Sales plan is how you prepare for the pitches. And then I can, perhaps about this one, I can tell you one important thing, that when you pitch to a specific buyer of a specific chain, it's very important to understand what other products of the same category that chain is selling, to analyze and compare that other products with yours, and to be able to show to the buyer that you've done your homework, you understand their store, you understand their strategy, and you show them in the end that yours is better, and the dollar sign that with selling yours, they will make more money. Because at the end of the day, these people are buyers, they're gonna buy the product, but they wanna make sure that you understand what it is to do business in the US. You have the logistics set up, you have the supply chain, and you have the team that would push your brand. So these are some of the chains and the distributors that we work with. A unique opportunity for Rosewell Global clients is that twice annually we organize conventions where we are able to book one-to-one appointments for our clients with top decision makers at retail chains. But this doesn't mean that we can call these people and tell them, hey, can you buy and start selling this product? They're our clients. There's still a huge lot of homework that we together need to do and prepare with, and your product and ourselves, the whole proposal needs to be in place. So what does the homework take? Invest time. You can't decide that you want to sell in the US, you have the best product in the world, and be ready to go and meet the retailers and sell your product and be successful. It takes some time to get there. Then invest efforts, because it's work on our side, on the local markets, and it's work back at home. And then it takes money investment. It is possible to spend less, but it is not possible to do business in the US without investing in the market. But this is the biggest consumer market in the world, and it will take some investment. I could talk longer and bring specific examples about how much it takes to do business with each of the stores, but maybe it makes sense sharing just a couple of success stories. I don't know if you would recognize this, but this is actually a Latvian brand. In Latvia, they're called Liela Bata. In the US, we had to change the name to Bata because Liela Bata was too difficult for the US consumer. And this brand is already selling and will be launching with Albertsons in January 2021. We chose the kids bottle because it's very special. It's no spill, and guess what? In the US, they didn't have these bottles. So Latvia is pioneering in the US water industry. The next one,
before we jump to the next example, how important do you think it is for the Latvian companies to adjust their product and packaging for the US market? Because I know the design, of course, the label is a requirement, but then the design of the packaging is relatively different, and even the taste, because we have a really good example with a Latvian food producer that actually went through a long process of changing the taste of their sweets. So they would be kind of made specifically for the American taste buds.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, Tom's. Specifically this example, Lielbata created the kids label specifically for the US market. The name was changed, that we didn't touch the taste because this was natural spring water, so that was the unique thing about it. But the way it was presented to the market, the videos were created specifically addressing the US consumers. We were being compared to specifically the US brands. Another example of changing the taste was Amrita. That's another bottled water from Latvia. So, and it's an anti-aging water. When we came and we started pitching with Agia to the retail chains in the US, that has the buzzword, it's anti-aging. And all the heads and VPs of these chains, they're like, we want to take bath in this water. Of course, we're going to buy this, it's anti-aging. But it took them 2 minutes after they tasted the water to come back and say, hey guys, no, this is a no for the US market. Because mineral waters taste less, they have less mineral content taste in the US because most of the bottled waters are heavily filtered here. So it's just a taste difference. So Amrita had to go back to Latvia and change their product and change the taste to customize it to the US market. So that's another example. And then, shall I go to the other? What is the timing, Tom? We could.
It's good. I think, yeah, okay. I think valuable to hear these examples.
So the next, So the next example is vodka that comes actually from Armenia, and it's called Ohanian Vodka. And this vodka is launching with Albertsons. And it was the only thing that helped this vodka was, first of all, because it was organic and there was not too much competition. The consumers who are buying organic, they're committed to buying everything organic, including vodka. So that helped a lot. And of course, finances and having everything set up properly. And it took us a little more than 9 months to prepare to do the packaging. We changed the packaging. We changed the way the label looked before we were able to go and pitch them. And then the product from Norway, that is kind of a gluten-free crackers that launched with Trader Joe's, and they go under Trader Joe's label, but it says product of Norway, and that's kind of a private label example. So I guess that's where I'm going to finish the presentation, Toms, and then give you an opportunity to go with the questions and maybe also the audience to ask questions.
Yes, that is perfect, Amalia. Thank you so much for the overview. I see we have some questions already. If you have any other specific questions, please go ahead and type it in the chat or QA section. And I think the first question, you touched a little bit about the FDA registration. And I think we've had some questions that were sent in, and also I see one in the chat that asks, what are the requirements for certifications? Is it FDA registration? And how easy or difficult it is for a Latvian company to get it?
So FDA is the Food and Drug Agency in the US, and they are the main agencies that do registration and certification of products that come to the US. In many cases, because Latvia is EU and EU standards are more stringent than the US standards, in many cases, FDA registration is a formal process that the brands have to go. It still doesn't mean that every single brand can be registered and certified, but through my experience, the way I see that, if a brand is, or if a manufacturer has been certified in the EU and has been qualified for the EU requirements, it's a formality, and there is several agencies that can help with the application process, and Rosewell Global does too. So that's just something that the brand should know and take care of before launching.
Yes, and I also know that there's specific label requirements, and there's actually been cases in the past with Latvian companies that they would have some either mistakes or just the labels would not match what's required, and so they would be stopped in the customs, and then they would have to pay for every day it's in the customs.
Yeah, that's another thing. So we work with, and each category would have its own special label requirements with FDA. So we work with label consultants who are former FDA employees that would help the brand and kind of clear the brand and labels for the manufacturers, so they don't worry. If it's cleared by a consultant and kind of registered by FDA, then you can rest assured that your product won't have problems, either at the customs or already when it's going to the retailer.
I could also add, since you mentioned your example with vodka from Armenia, which is USDA organic certified, the European organic certification is actually equivalent to the US one. So if you have one, it's very easy to get the other one as well, and works both ways, of course. And then I guess to quickly answer a more specific question about vegan products and meat products, for vegan products, it's much easier, and an FDA registration would do it. While for meat, actually, you would need to audit and certify the manufacturing plant where. And so right now, I don't think there's any plants in Latvia that are certified for it. And it's usually a time-consuming and more expensive process. So I would recommend to go with the vegan products. But I'll give you a little, like a more general question. What would be the best way to find the distributors or get into the market? Because up until now, trade shows were one of the main channels with how to do it. And what do you think would be the best ways how to do it right now?
So through my experience, trade shows are good. You still can make a lot of contacts at trade shows, but in many cases, the brands would spend money, come have booths, present their products, and it's not really often that at the trade shows they either see a buyer or a distributor. These guys are just not in the habit of going to these places. They do, but rarely. They're too busy, because in many cases the brands would go to them. So most of the time they don't have to hunt for the brands. The brands are knocking their doors 24 hours a day. In my experience, it's been more effective to go to special retailer organized conventions and to have pre-booked meetings at these conventions. For foreign brands, it's a bit difficult to kind of know about these events, because most of the time they're organized by the retailers and invited by the retailers, or it's either hosted by a distributor or a retailer. But if you have a local presence, you're registered in retail associations, and Rosewell Global is a board member to a few of the retail associations. So we get to know about this, and I'm happy to share about these conventions and tell more if there is kind of interest.
I also saw a question about warehouses. And I can tell from our own experience that when Latvian companies participated in Fancy Food Show, which is one of the largest food sector trade shows, that they would often, the buyers would ask, where is your warehouse? Or and then when you would when the company would answer them that the warehouse is in Europe, then they would lose the interest pretty quickly. And can you give us some explanation on that? And when?
So even the distributors who are in European terms, these are the people that would run the warehouse and sell for the manufacturers. So in the US, even the distributors, when they buy from a foreign company, they don't want the foreign manufacturer to send the product directly to their warehouse. They make a requirement for the foreign supplier to have a warehouse in the US. So, and it's expensive to run a warehouse in the US while you do not yet have like a real partner, or at least in the review process with the retailers. So my one thing would be having your options, like having a couple of options of warehouses listed, and then preliminary agreements with the warehouses, and just tell the distributor or retailer, whoever it is, these are our options. This is one location, that's locations. You're always going to have that 1 month period to ship your container to that warehouse. Just a trick that I've learned that foreign companies could do. Have listed, do initial listing, bidding of the warehouses, and just have names and initial arrangements. Once you have the real potential for order, send your product.
Mm-hmm. And you could also sublease the warehouse the moment.
Yeah, so that's possible.
Yeah, that's great. I think another big question is about the budget. What do you think would be the amount of the investment necessary to look at the US market?
Mm-hmm.
What would be like the starting? What would maybe be like the average budget necessary? And what would be the ideal?
So it's difficult to say because it would vary from brand to brand, from the strategy you take, how many SKUs you're introducing, or which stores and chains you're going with. But to give you a very, very rough and just an average example of if you're launching, let's say with 50 stores in the US, that would take you at least, with preliminary work and consultancy and all the services, you'd have to plan at least to spend from 20 to 50,000 during the first, 20K to 50K during the first year. That's an investment. It can be a little less or a little more, but that's an investment that will take, with all the FDA legislations, label clearances, setting up the warehouse, that will prepare you to have the brand up and running to work with retail chains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I could just add that in case you're a smaller company or producer and you don't have that budget, then online platforms like Amazon and Walmart could be a good way to test your product. The competition in those platforms are fierce, but it's also a good way to test. And if it's a non-food product, then Etsy is one that a lot of people use, and we could probably organize separate webinars on those with experts in e-commerce. And I see that there are questions also about e-commerce and non-food manufacturers. If you have like more specific questions, we're happy to try to answer them. Amalia, do you work with non-food products as well, and if so, what's the proportion?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's everything that can get on a retail store, including department stores. This can be clothing brands, ranging from beauty products, self-care, hygiene, and food and beverage.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I see there's a question also, what is the certification needed for lighting fixtures? So for non-food products, it's usually FCC that you would be looking at. And depends on the product. Sometimes it would be required, and sometimes it's just recommended, because the risk in the US is that if something goes wrong with your product, then the consumer would actually sue you, and you might end up with a big fine. And if you can't pay the fine, you might end up in a prison, basically. But I also don't want to scare anyone. Let's see. I think that's pretty much, we've covered most of it. I think the last question I have is if any of the companies would like to contact you, what would be the best way? And you mentioned already the homework, but maybe if you could like just list maybe 2 or 3 main things that they should do before they do that.
So yeah, and the companies could, maybe I can leave an email address, or my website would have an email address at the top. I can write it down at the end in the chat for contacting me, and I'm happy to do free consultation for the companies that would be interested to talk more about specifically their examples, because we are all quick and short. I know that you might have specific questions related to your business. But as for the homework, so the main important things would be that it seems that having a US presence makes your chances 70% higher to be able to do business and find partnerships in the US. That's having a US registered company, having your logistics and supply chain settled, having a representative, that's a person who would present you to the local partners here locally. And of course, FDA registrations, all the certifications, having a financial plan in place and marketing budget. Because at the end of the day, when you're, just one example, when Lee Albata was launching with Albertsons, and the very last thing they asked us was like, what's your marketing budget? You're gonna be next to Nestle and all the waters of Pepsi and Evian. So you have to at least give a number and to plan properly your marketing budgets, how you're gonna handle competition. There's always ways to do it smart, but if you're going into a big market, you'd have to understand that it will take some investment. Yeah,
we actually have some more questions. If you have the time, we'd be happy to go through those. There's some specific questions about registration for the cosmetic products. I can also answer that. It's also the same FDA. You can find it on the website and just pick the cosmetics. And if you're not promising some miracle effect of the cosmetics, it shouldn't be that difficult to register. Then there's a question about handmade baby accessories, and they're saying that the amounts are maybe not that big, and what would be the options for a smaller niche retail stores for smaller volumes? What would be your recommendation here?
So maybe for this type of thing, starting online would be a good option, because it will take less investment too. And finding a fulfillment, which is a warehouse that would also fulfill your online orders. And because sending it from Latvia order by order might be expensive in terms of international shipment, but if you have like a pallet of your handmade things sitting in a US fulfillment center, that might help you to fulfill your online orders more cost effectively, then you can compete in the price. But everything that's handmade, premium, natural and clean and clear is trending in the US, and parents are one of the top paying consumers. So that's a good product. We can think of separate independent stores as you're just understanding better what are your capacities.
Yeah, and I see a similar question about toys, and I could just add that your number one place would probably be Etsy. If you haven't made the store already, that will be the best to start testing it. And then as the next step, I would recommend going to Amazon and Walmart. Those both platforms require more skill because it's more about how you make your product visible, not just adding on the platform. But so is Etsy right now, with the competition is getting more and more fierce. Then there are some specific questions about high-end audio sector. Is that something you would work, or if not, then do you have like a similar company to Rosewalk Global that could do?
So I haven't had experience with anything that high tech or high end, but maybe Tom's, you and I can think of something and try to give an answer to this specifically, Brent. If they just email us, myself and Tom's, and we'll try to kind of come up with it.
Yes, agree. Then there's a specific questions about new dietary ingredient notification. Can you provide consulting? Would Rosewalk Global be able to provide consulting on that? And
dietary, meaning supplements, Tom's, is that what it is? The question, I'm not sure I didn't.
It's NDIN, new dietary ingredient notification. So,
oh yeah, that's the requirement. Yeah, we have the consultants that are working specifically on that field, and we can connect you directly with them and get you cleared on that one as well.
There's a question about computer accessories, manufacturers, more into health and well-being segment. Is that something Rosewalk Global would work with?
It depends on who is your end buyer. Maybe we can speak if that's depending on where you target to sell your product. Our strongest, so for Rosewalk Global, for you to understand, our strongest connections and relationships are at the retail, department stores, grocery and supermarket chains. These are the main people that we work on a daily basis with. We can still do research and kind of try to help you, but that will be something that will be on demand basis.
Yeah, and then what about the pharmacy producers? Have you worked with any before? And is like pharmacy chains like CVS and Walgreens also among your network?
Yeah, CVS and Walgreens are included, but we haven't worked with pharmaceuticals yet. Those were more supplements or other non-drug items that would sell at the pharmacies, like something specifically for kids or personal hygiene products.
Yes. Some more specific questions about disinfectants. So alcohol, disinfection,
and sanitizers and stuff.
Yeah, they need application with the FDA.
Yeah, it's still the same FDA that certifies and clears these products. And we recently had a distributor. Actually, there was a period where the distributors and retailers were looking for this product, right, when the pandemic started, and states and everyone else was sourcing. It's kind of set back aside a little bit, but still the opportunities are there. So just email me, and we have 2 distributors that are sourcing sanitizers that bought sanitizers to us. So maybe still actual.
Yeah, and I can just add that a couple of months ago, they had some big news that some of them were harmful. So that's why also the registration. And there's a question about VAT and how do you deal with selling electronics in different states and the difference in VAT. I guess the first is if you're selling online, then it's self-explanatory. And I don't know if Rosewalk Global also have accountants that would
yeah, So in the US, these guys are accountants, are called CPAs. And that would be one, like an addition to your previous question, what it takes to do business in the US. You'd have to have a CPA, which is the person that runs your taxes in the US annually and would advise you on all issues related to tax. So we connect you with different options of CPA and tax service providers, and Tom's and I can direct you to these guys. And they will explain, because in the US there is federal taxes and that there is the state level taxes, and they differ between each other. So you'd have to go through a specialist on that.
Yes, I can second that. I've also added my email in the chat, so please feel free to, also Amalia's email, so please feel free to reach out. Regarding CPAs, I guess it would be probably even better to write to me. You also know some American Latvian CPAs, which have worked with Latvian companies. And of course, if you have some also.
I think I would recommend the same American Latvians.
Yeah.
So Tom is good with that.
Very good. And I think the last specific question, if I haven't missed one, is have you also worked with the horticulture products?
I don't even know what is a horticulture product, Thomas.
Yes.
Oh, let's see.
Sure.
So no, the answer is no then.
Yes, I guess.
Okay, plants.
Plants, yes.
So if that's probably something that would go to, if that's something that would go to Home Depot, like anything that's related to gardening or garden equipments, Home Depot, yes, we work with Home Depot. It's just, I do have to understand the specifics of your product and what it is in particular.
I think we're right in time. I think maybe the very last question, and a little bit general. What do you think are the main differences? What do you think is the most important when you're coming and trying to sell your product? Because America is probably one of the best salespeople in the world, and you really have to have the right mindset and approach, and you can't be too humble. And so what would be kind of your tips and tricks that you would recommend?
No, you can't be humble if you're selling something in the US, and that's a big cultural difference. I'm happy you're bringing this up, because I think people that come from our culture, we're kind of modest about praising our prices, whereas the US salespeople are very aggressive. However, when you're getting to a stage where you're already sitting in front of the buyers, especially in the retail industry, these people have already met because they have intentions to buy your product. And the one most important thing is to show them that you're ready to sell, that you have a proper functioning supply chain, your product is good, you understand your costs, you're ready to take over these costs of doing business with them, and you're ready to run your sales team and your marketing, and you have the strategy for long run, because they don't want to take over a brand that will fail and not work, because that's so much extra work for them. And the shelf place is money. Every item that's on a shelf on the retail chain is and it's not selling, it's a big expense for the retail chain. So if you're able to prove at the pitch that you're qualifying for the best product, proper supply chain, you have the team behind, you have a marketing budget that's going to push the brand, and then show the dollar sign of the margin to the retailer that here's the margin you're going to get with me, then in most of the cases you might be successful.
Help them see how they will make money selling.
I know, that's true.
Right. Thank you, Amalia. Thank you so much. I know it's super late for you, and it's been, I think, very useful. And please feel free to reach out to Amalia. We have the email in the chat section. And then, I wish everyone success in in the US market and other export markets. If you are interested in exporting and you have the products and the capabilities. I would also like to remind that next week we have a matchmaking event with the LIA representatives. We have around 20 countries across the world. It's Asia, Europe, and the US, and it's a chance to meet them for 20 minutes and explain your product and hear how big is the potential in the target export market. And yeah, other than that, thank you, Amalia, and thank you, everyone.
Thomas, thank you. Thanks everyone for your time. This is COVID and this is end of the year and Christmas holidays approaching. So we wish you to stay healthy, and let's get these holidays to bring real magic, because this has been a hell of a difficult year.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Bye. Thank you, Tom. Thanks again. Thanks everyone.